Welcome. Hello to you all. Hopefully, you're having a good Tuesday, a good start of the week, and hopefully, I've got some good sound working. Let's find out. How's that sound coming through? Let's find out. It's coming through. Great. How's that sound? All right. So, today we resume. We resume our new study, Karma Yoga by Swami Vivekananda. So far, been pretty enjoyable. Today we're punching the clock just a little earlier than usual because this chapter, like I said yesterday, this chapter is pretty long. This chapter is like 30 pages. So we might be at it for just a little bit longer than usual, or what I've been trying to make the usual. I mean, we don't really have anything set in stone over here on Jay's channel. By the way, that's who I am, Jay Baldell, and welcome to my channel for anybody new. And for anybody returning. Look, Jay, we already made sure your sound works. So, yep, for anybody new or anybody returning, welcome as usual. It's always great to have you here. Much love to you all. And I am looking forward to resuming this book. Everything I have read from Swami Vivekananda has been some of the best, that's for sure. So I need to, let's see, real quick, I need to grab my drink. And hey, and then we could go ahead and get rocking. Probably don't want to spend too much time yapping today because we do have a good chunk of chapter ahead of us. Ha, my cat. Anybody else's cats like bags, like, grocery store bag or the bag from your package of water bottles? Mine's in one right now, like her little clubhouse, her kitty clubhouse. Do you have a clubhouse? Is it your most sacred place? That inner clubhouse, perhaps. That inner Church of Christ, as we already learned about Christ. And that's tying in with what we're learning so far about Karma Yoga. Welcome in, everybody just coming in. So the little bit of yapping I do want to do, though, is in relation to this Karma Yoga. Because I get it. I get it. I go attend a lot of other streams out here. I mean, I check and see what other people have to say. Like I've said, even if some of these people are on some silly time, they also are spitting some decent stuff mixed in with that silliness. So it's worth it to look around, and I see these chats, and I see the way in these chats all kinds of people will just, like the seagulls in Finding Nemo, just all say the same thing over and over and over again. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted. There is no good and evil. All of that type of stuff. One true goddess. Welcome. Always good to see you here. All of that type of silly stuff. There is no such thing as good and evil. Nothing is true. Everything is permitted. Yep. Mm-hmm. Right. So let's talk a little bit about that real quick before we do our tarot. Let's talk a little bit about good and evil. Let's talk a little bit about why that's just actually kind of silly. That's some of the silly time that I see people on out here. So maybe not in the way that the church, the mainstream church, and any of that's tried to get you to believe. Maybe not. Maybe not. Here's the way you really need to look at it. Good, or things that are angelic, are anything that is helping you towards your true will, towards the cultivation of Dharma. Anything that is evil, anything that is demonic, are the things that take you away from that. And whether you want to admit it or not, when you treat others crappily, in crappy ways, that's the way to say it, in crappy ways, when you do harm to your fellow human beings out here, well, you can try to Finding Nemo your way, and you can Finding Nemo Seagull your way under whoever the heck's chat you want, talking about nothing is true, everything is permitted, nothing is true, everything is permitted. God, stick a fork in my eye. Grow up. Like, yeah, but here's the thing. You might talk a good game. Like, there's a lot of slick talkers out here, but the reality is, you know better than I do that you're the one who has to suffer the consequences of your actions. And that's what karma yoga is, the yoga of action. So do you want to just, I don't know, grow up and start doing what you're supposed to do here? Because if if nothing mattered, then why would we even be here in the first place? You know what I mean? And sure, that might be true to some degree at the absolute highest level of everything. But consciousness and matter don't do their dance for no reason. So, yet you might sound real cool. You might sound like you know some things, just repeating the same crap that other people say. But you're going to have to live with the consequences of those actions. You're going to have to look yourself in the mirror and know that you did this to somebody you called a friend, that you did this to somebody who is supposed to be your family, that you, whatever it might be. And those things, little by little, pull you more and more away from your true will. They pull you more and more away, which again is synonymous. Your true will is synonymous with God's will when you're actually really doing it. You know what I mean? Not what you want to do, but what your will actually is. But I doubt anybody's figured that out because everybody's too busy talking about what Goisha they're working with this week, and oh my goodness. All right. So there you go. There you go. Quit being crappy to each other. Live by the golden rule. That all goes in with what Swami's going to say here. So if you don't want to hear it from me, well, then fast forward to where I'm going to start reading after this tarot, and you can hear Swami Vivekananda tell it to you. Because I promise you, he certainly was what most of these YouTubers pretend to be. These slick talkers out here. Goodness gracious. Or in Gnosticism. In Gnosticism, they talk about the archons, right? Everybody, oh, the demiurge and the archons. Well, does anybody actually look that stuff up? Does anybody actually like look into the ways that the archons and the demiurge keep us trapped and all of that stuff? Because a lot of it is through the manipulation of truth, the manipulation of words. Oh no, I see people out here NLPing themselves into absolute silliness, into just the most ridiculous things I have heard. But hey, nothing is true. Everything is permitted. Goodness freaking gracious. Oh, whatever. If that's what makes you happy, then I guess, hey, who am I to tell you otherwise? How's that going for you, though? Is it really making you happy? All right. Oh, my music's not playing. Let's get that music playing. Hold on. All right. That ought to do it. Okay. We'll keep shuffling a little more. Shuffle up in the rant. But now let's shuffle up with the idea of what is our energy for this chapter 2 read? What is this energy for Tuesday? What is this deck of cards want to tell us this time around? Let's go one more shuff. And then split it. That's the card that wants attention. Air again? Fire? Air or fire? That's what it feels like to me. Fire. Oh, I had a feeling this card was coming in the next couple days. Okay, I don't know why. I just kept seeing it in my head. So, Five of Wands. So, Dibura in the highest world, in the world of fire on the tree of life. The world of absolute, the archetypal, however you want to say it, world. This one being Saturn and Leo. Can't remember how Saturn feels in Leo. I don't remember if it's a detriment or it's um it's not exalted. I'll tell you that. It's not at home. I'll tell you that. Leo, the lion, the courageous one, those leadership qualities, but perhaps Saturn is imposing its restrictiveness upon that. And that's why this is here, the Lord of Strife. We see that middle pillar column represented here by the caduceus. And up there at the top, you can see is Crowley's mark of the beast. So perhaps that center column right now is kind of being how I want to say conflicted. That's how I want to say it. Conflicted. You've got some conflicting wills forcing themselves upon your efforts of equilibrium, your efforts to stay centered and balanced. 5 also being Mars, so that Mars and that Saturn, both of those are found on the pillar of severity. So perhaps those severe aspects right now, yeah, just messing with what could otherwise be you doing your best, you taking this will and keeping it locked in, keeping it focused. We'll see. We'll see if what we read today syncs up with that. We'll see if what happens today, I guess, whatever you might go about your day happens, if it might agree with that or not. And hey, maybe you could look at it as actually maybe a little bit of the opposite. Maybe that balance, that center, well, maybe it's perfectly centered, and these other irons you have in the fire, perhaps. And so maybe in that sense, it's that work that you're trying to put in, working through the element of fire, your will. Let's see what Swami V has to say, and if it's going to go along with that. That part has been certainly interesting to see that kind of no matter what we pull, has been syncing up. So again, this is Jay Balvale. If you're new and you enjoy this content, then please hit a like, share, and subscribe. I don't think I said that part. I said who I am, but I think I forgot the like, share, and subscribe part. You know, we gotta make the algorithm happy. Goodness gracious. Take a drink and let's do it. And let's see here. I think that's Russian. Russian or maybe like I don't know. I can't read it. Either way, I can't read Russian name and Russian chat in the chat. What's up? Welcome in. I can not read what you have to say, but I'm going to assume that you're saying something about that 5 of Wands really hits. Thank you so much, Jay. You're welcome. And Sir Impeccable is here as well. What's up, Sir Impeccable? Good to see you. He says, what's up, bro? Glad to be here. Been working a lot, bro. Let's get it. Absolutely. Stay working. That's what Swami V is about to tell us, so might as well make him proud, huh? And the rest of our ancestors. We've got different levels of ancestors, right? And so Swami V could very much be looked at. Same with like Crowley, the Unfortunate, could be looked at as those more spiritual type of ancestors. I think they talk, I'm trying to remember how it was divided up when it was explained to me. I want to say it was blood, bone, and spirit. So maybe they'd be more bone, spirit, kind of bordering on one another. And Sir Impeccable says, Swami V, my boy, you know that for sure. All right, then. So this chapter is called Each is Great in His Own Place. All right, then. According to the Sankhya philosophy, nature is composed of 3 forces called, in Sanskrit, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. These are manifested in the physical world. These, as manifested in the physical world, are what we may call equilibrium, activity, and inertness. Tamas is typified as darkness or inactivity. Rajas is activity expressed as attraction or repulsion, and sattva is the equilibrium of the two. Nice. Well, I'm going to at least highlight that first one. Because even though I know that, and I know a good chunk of you know that, like I said, sometimes I highlight with, well, those below me in the family, that is, like the younger nieces and nephews type in mind. Should these ever fall in their lap? Should they ever say, hey, Uncle Jay, I want to borrow this book? Well, then the important things are already going to be highlighted for them. Highlight. Did we ever figure out the past tense of highlighted? Is it just highlight? I don't know. In every man, there are these three forces. Sometimes tamas prevails. We become lazy. We cannot move. We are inactive, bound down by certain ideas or by mere dullness. At other times, activity prevails, and at still other times, that calm balancing of both. Again, in different men, one of these forces is generally predominant. The characteristic of one man is inactivity, dullness, and laziness. That of another, activity, power, manifestation of energy. And in still another, we find the sweetness, calmness, and gentleness, which are due to the balancing of both action and inaction. So, in all creation, in animals, plants, and men, we find the more or less typical manifestation of all these different forces. Most definitely. Yep. So, right now, this channel is in a little bit more of a rajasic state after being in quite a tamasic state last year. But ultimately, I'm hoping to have it as in a sattvic state. You know what I mean? You guys know. I don't gotta ask. All right. Karma Yoga has specially to deal with these three factors. By teaching what they are used or what they are and how to employ them, it helps us to do our work better. Human society is a graded organization. We all know about morality and we all know about duty. But at the same time, we find that in different countries, the significance of morality varies greatly. 100%. Right. So see, that's why what I said to start this stream. Thanks, Swami V. Thanks for backing me up. Things like yeah, morality might not be so black and white, but if you look at good and evil as the things that keep you focused on what you are actually supposed to be doing with this life versus the things that pull you farther and farther away from that's going to be the best way to look at it. Just like that high and low magic. I already talked about that a little bit too. High magic being the eternal type, low magic being more the temporal type. Let's see, morality varies greatly. What is regarded as moral in one country may in another be considered perfectly immoral. For instance, in one country, cousins may marry. In another, it is thought to be very immoral. In one, men may marry their sisters in law. In another, it is regarded as immoral. In one country, people may marry only once. In another, many times, and so forth. Similarly, in all other departments of morality, we find the standard varies greatly. Yet we have the idea that there must be a universal standard of morality. And what's that going to be, Swami? What's that going to be after I highlight this little bit right here? So it is with duty. The idea of duty varies much among different nations. In one country, are you sticking together? Nope. In one country, if a man does not do certain things, people will say he has acted wrongly. While if he does those very things in another country, people will say that he did not act rightly. And yet we know that there must be some universal idea of duty. In the same way, one class of society thinks that certain things are among its duty, while another class thinks quite the opposite and would be horrified if it had to do those things. Two ways are left open to us: the way of the ignorant, who think that there is only one way to truth and that all the rest are wrong, and the way of the wise, who admit that, according to our mental constitution, or the different planes of existence in which we are, duty and morality may vary. The important thing is to know that there are gradations of duty and morality, that the duty of one state of life in one set of circumstances will not and cannot be that of another. To illustrate, all great teachers have taught, resist not evil. That non-resistance is the highest moral ideal. We all know that if a certain number of us attempted to put that maxim fully into practice, the whole social fabric would fall to pieces. The wicked would take possession of our properties and our lives and would do whatever they liked with us. Even if only one day of such non resistance were practiced, it would lead to disaster. Yet, intuitively, in our heart of hearts, we feel the truth of the teaching, resist not evil. This seems to us to be the highest ideal. Yet, to teach this doctrine only would be equivalent to condemning a vast portion of mankind. Sunshine Chick, hello, always great to see you. Hope all is well with you. Not only so, it would be making men feel that they were always doing wrong, and cause in them scruples of conscience in all their actions. It would weaken them, and that constant self disapproval would breed more vice than any other weakness would. To the man who has begun to hate himself, the gate to degeneration has already opened, and the same is true of a nation. Our first duty is not to hate ourselves, because to advance we must have faith in ourselves first and then in God. He who has no faith in himself can never have faith in God. Therefore, the only alternative remaining to us is to recognize that duty and morality vary under different circumstances. Not that the man who resists evil is doing what is always and in itself wrong, but that in different circumstances in which he is placed, it may become even his duty to resist evil. In reading the Bhagavad Gita, many of you in Western countries may have felt astonished at the second chapter, wherein Sri Krishna calls Arjuna a hypocrite and a coward because of his refusal to fight or offer resistance, on account of his adverse adversaries being his friends and relatives, making the plea that non resistance was the highest ideal of love. This is a great lesson for us all to learn, that in all matters the two extremes are alike. The extreme positive and the extreme negative are always similar. When the vibrations of light are too slow, we do not see them, nor do we see them when we are too rapid. Mothra, welcome in. Great to see you as well. Hope you're having a good day. So, with sound, when very low in pitch, we do not hear it. When very high, we do not hear it either. Of like nature is the difference between resistance and non resistance. One man does not resist because he is weak, lazy, and cannot, not because he will not. The other man knows that he can strike an irresistible blow if he likes, yet he not only does not strike, but blesses his enemies. The one who from weakness resists not commits a sin, and such cannot receive any benefit from the non resistance. while the other would commit a sin by offering resistance. Buddha gave up his throne and renounced his position. That was true renunciation. But there cannot be any question of renunciation in the case of a beggar who has nothing to renounce. So, we must always be careful about what we really mean when we speak of this non resistance and ideal love. We must first take care to understand whether we have the power of resistance or not. Then, having the power, if we renounce it and do not resist, we are doing a grand act of love. But if we cannot resist and yet at the same time try to deceive ourselves into the belief that we are actuated by motives of the highest love, we are doing the exact opposite. Arjuna became a coward at the sight of the mighty array against him. His love made him forget his duty towards his country and king. That is why Sri Krishna told him that he was a hypocrite. Thou talkest like a wise man, but thy actions betray thee to be a coward. Therefore, stand up and fight. Such is the central idea of karma yoga. The karma yogi is the man who understands that the highest ideal is non resistance, and who also knows that this non resistance is the highest manifestation of power in actual possession. And also, what is called the resisting of evil is but a step on the way towards the manifestation of this highest power, namely non resistance. Before teaching this highest ideal, man's duty is to resist evil. Let him work, let him fight, let him strike straight from the shoulder. Then, only when he has gained the power to resist, will non resistance be a virtue. I once met a man in my country whom I had known before as a very stupid, dull person, who knew nothing and had not the desire to know anything, and was living the life of a brute. He asked me what he should do to know God, how he was to get free. Can you tell a lie? I asked him. No, he replied. Then you must learn to do so. It is better to tell a lie than to be a brute or a log of wood. You are inactive. You have not certainly reached the highest state, which is beyond all actions, calm and serene. You are too dull even to do something wicked. This was an extreme case, of course, and I was joking with him. But what I meant was that a man must be active in order to pass through activity to perfect calmness. And in so many words, this sounds a lot like what Sri Ramana says, too. Shoot, this even sounds like do what thou will shall be the whole of the law. Inactivity should be avoided by all means. Activity always means resistance. Resist all evils, mental and physical. And when you have succeeded in resisting, then will calmness come. It is very easy to say, hate nobody, resist not evil. But we know what kind of thing generally means and what that kind of thing generally means in practice. When the eyes of society are turned towards us, we may make a show of non resistance, but in our hearts, it is a canker all the time. We feel the utter want of the calm of non resistance. We feel that it would be better for us to resist. If you desire wealth and know at the same time that the whole world regards him who aims at wealth as a very wicked man, you, perhaps, will not dare to plunge into the struggle for wealth. Yet your mind will be running day and night after money. This is hypocrisy and will serve no purpose. Plunge into the world, and then, after a time, when you have suffered and enjoyed all that is in it, will renunciation come. Then will calmness come. So fulfill your desire for power and everything else. And after you have fulfilled the desire, will come the time when you will know that they are all very little things. But until you have fulfilled this desire, until you have passed through that activity, it is impossible for you to come to the state of calmness, serenity, and self surrender. So, this also sounds a lot like the teachings of Siddha Tantra, and where that's basically the idea, or even some of the more left hand path type of ideas of. So, let's use like addiction as an example, right? Well, you don't know how much is how much is too much until you've had enough. You know what I mean? And that does certainly seem to be the state of the world right now. And so that's why some of these people, he's already said kind of some of these definitions of karma. And so that's why, yeah, some of these people might have to go ahead and pursue their fantasies of being some online wizard and making all these thousands and thousands of dollars, or online guru and making all these thousands and thousands of dollars, and once they've basically got their fill of that and realized that they just kind of did dirt on some people, and however it comes about, you know what I mean, then ultimately they'll get to that other end of it. At least that's what it seems like Swami here is certainly telling us. Let's see, I think I was right there. These ideas of serenity and renunciation have been preached for thousands of years. Everybody has heard of them from childhood, and yet we see very few in the world who have really reached that stage. I do not know if I have seen 20 persons in my life who are really calm and non resisting. And I have traveled all over the world. And that's like the stories they'll tell about Sri Ramana. Like there's one story that really stood out to me where he was in samadhi, and some he was like in a mango grove, and some guys came along stealing mangoes from this farmer's mango grove, but they also had seen, one of them said something about, hey, didn't you see that yogi over there meditating, like, and they were talking about how they should get some poisonous plants and blind him so he couldn't testify against him at court. And he's hearing all of this, and he's in this perfect samadhi, and he was just fully willing and ready to let it happen if it was going to happen. Ultimately, they decided that he wasn't a threat and just left him alone. Or even they would talk about how in this cave he used to meditate in, ants and scorpions and things would be crawling all over him, biting him, whatever, pinching him, and it just didn't care. You know what I mean? And so that's why I say pay attention. You know what I mean? Even if some of these people out here give some very valuable teachings, some of them are also trying to pass themselves off as something they're not. And you can just tell because if you pay attention to some of the things they'll say at times, even though they're giving sauce over here, oh, then over here they're saying things like, "Oh, I just can't with all these NPCs." It sounds to me like you're at odds with the world around you, that you're othering these people, you're separating, you're creating a sense of separateness. So, hey, we're all trying to step our game up though. So let's do just that. Let's continue to help one another to really, really do this thing and do it big. Every man should take up his own ideal and endeavor to accomplish it. That is a surer way of progress than taking up other men's ideals, which he can never hope to accomplish. For instance, we take a child and at once give him the task of walking 20 miles. Either the little one dies, or in a thousand crawls the 20, or one in a thousand crawls the 20 miles to reach the end exhausted and half dead. That is like what we generally try to do with the world. All men and women in any society are not of the same mind, capacity, or of the same power to do things. They must have different ideals, and we have no right to sneer at any ideal. Let everyone do the best he can for realizing his own ideal. right there, your own ideal. So that's why the main thing I'm preaching is get a hold of the HGA, get a hold of the capital S self, so that you can figure out exactly what that is for you. I don't know what it is for you. I would be foolish to try to tell you what it is for you. I know, but I know the path to figure it out for yourself. Nor is it right that I should be judged by your standard or you by mine. The apple tree should not be judged by the standard of the oak, nor the oak by that of the apple. To judge the apple tree, you must take the apple standard, and for the oak, its own standard. Unity and variety is the plan of creation. However, men and women may vary individually. There is unity in the background. The different individual characters and classes of men and women are natural variations in creation. Unity and variety is the plan of creation. Let's see this one. Let everyone do the best he can for realizing his own ideal. Every man should take up his own ideal and endeavor to accomplish it. And right under it, there is a sure way of progress than taking up other men's ideals. Hence, we ought not to judge them by the same standard or put the same ideal before them. Such a course creates only an unnatural struggle, and the result is that man begins to hate himself and is hindered from becoming religious and good. Our duty is to encourage everyone in his struggle to live up to his own highest ideal and strive at the same time to make the ideal as near as possible to the truth. Dub VT, welcome. All right. The gang's just about all here. Cool. Love that. Hope you're all having a wonderful day. Dub, it's always great to see you popping in the chat. In the Hindu system of morality, we find that this fact has been recognized from very ancient times. And in their scriptures and books on ethics, different rules are laid down for the different classes of men. The householder, the sannyasin, the man who has renounced the world, and the student. The life of every individual, according to the Hindu scriptures, has its peculiar duties apart from what belongs in common to universal humanity. The Hindu begins life as a student. Then he marries and becomes a householder. In old age, he retires. And lastly, he gives up the world and becomes a sannyasi. To each of these stages of life, certain duties are attached. No one of these stages is intrinsically superior to another. The life of the married man is quite as great as that of the celibate who has devoted himself to religious work. Exactly. The scavenger in the street is quite as great as the glorious king on his throne. Take him off his throne, make him do the work of the scavenger, and see how he fares. Take up the scavenger and see how he will rule. It is useless to say that the man who lives out of the world is a greater man than he who lives in the world. It is much more difficult to live in the world and worship God than to give it up and live a free and easy life. The four stages of life in India have in later times been reduced to two, that of the householder and of the monk. The householder marries and carries on his duties as a citizen, and the duty of the other is to devote his energies wholly to religion, to preach and to worship God. I shall read to you a few passages from the Maha Nirvana Tantra, which treats of this subject, and you will see that it is a very difficult task for a man to be a householder and perform all his duties perfectly. All right, I'm going to take a drink before we read that. The householder should be devoted to God. The knowledge of God should be his goal of life. Yet he must work constantly, perform all his duties. He must give up the fruits of his actions to God. The most difficult thing to work in this world to work and not care for the result. Oh, it is the most difficult thing in this world to work and not care for the result. To help a man and never think that he ought to be grateful. To do some good work and at the same time never look to see whether it brings you name or fame or nothing at all. Even the most errant coward becomes brave when the world praises him. A fool can do heroic deeds when the approbation of society, is upon him. But for a man to constantly do good without caring for the approbation of his fellow men is indeed the highest sacrifice a man can perform. The great duty of the householder is to earn a living, but he must take care that he does not do it by telling lies or by cheating or by robbing others. And he must remember that his life is for the service of God and the poor. Go back and highlight a little of this here. So there you go. Hey, I get it. We all got bread to put on our table. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. But are you doing honest work? Knowing that mother and father are the visible representatives of God, the householder is always and by all means the householder always and by all means must please them. If the mother is pleased and the father, God is pleased with the man. That child is really a good child who never speaks harsh words to his parents. Before parents, one must not utter jokes, must not show restlessness, must not show anger or temper. Before mother or father, a child must bow down low and stand up in their presence and must not take a seat until they order him to sit. If the householder has food and drink and clothes without first seeing that his mother and his father, his children, his wife, and the poor are supplied, he is committing a sin. The mother and the father are the causes of this body, so a man must undergo 1,000 troubles in order to do good to them. Even so is his duty to his wife. No man should scold his wife. He must always maintain her as if she were his own mother. And even when he is in the greatest difficulties and troubles, he must not show anger to his wife. He who thinks of another woman besides his wife, if he touches her even with his mind, that man goes to dark hell. Before women, he must not talk improper language and never brag of his powers. He must not say, I have done this and I have done that. The householder must always please his wife with money, clothes, love, faith, and words like nectar, and never do anything to disturb her. That man who has succeeded in getting the love of a chaste wife has succeeded in his religion and has all the virtues. The following are duties towards children. A son should be lovingly reared up to his 4th year. He should be educated till he is 16. When he is 20 years of age, he should be employed in some work. He should then be treated affectionately by his father as his equal. Exactly in the same manner, the daughter should be brought up and should be educated with the greatest care. And when she marries, the father ought to give her jewels and wealth. Then the duty of the man is towards his brothers and sisters, and towards the children of his brothers and sisters, if they are poor, and towards his other relatives, his friends, and his servants. Then his duties are towards the people of the same village, and the poor, and anyone that comes to him for help. Having sufficient means, if the householder does not take care to give to his relatives and to the poor, know him to be only a brute. He is not a human being. Excessive attachment to food, clothes, and the tending of the body and dressing of the hair should be avoided. The householder must be pure in heart and clean in body, always active and always ready for work. To his enemies, the householder must be a hero. Them he must resist. That is the duty of the householder. He must not sit down in a corner and weep and talk nonsense about non resistance. If he does not show himself a hero to his enemies, he has not done his duty. And to his friends and relatives, he must be as gentle as a lamb. It is the duty of the householder not to pay reverence to the wicked, because if he reverences the wicked people of the world, he patronizes wickedness, and it will be a great mistake if he disregards those who are worthy of respect, the good people. He must not be gushing in his friendship. He must not go out of the way making friends everywhere. He must watch the actions of men he wants to make friends with, and their dealings with other men, reason upon them, and then make friends. These three things he must not talk of. He must not talk in public of his own fame. He must not preach his own name or his own powers. He must not talk of his wealth or of anything that has been told to him privately. A man must not say he is poor or that he is wealthy. He must not brag of his wealth. Let him keep his own counsel. This is his religious duty. This is not mere worldly wisdom. If a man does not do so, he may be held to be immoral. The householder is the basis, the prop of the whole society. Pop quiz. Which Hebrew letter, so which tarot card is the prop, like a tent prop? He is the principal earner. The poor, the weak, the children, and the women who do not work all live upon the householder. So there must be certain duties that he has to perform, and these duties must make him feel strong to perform them, and not make him think that he is doing things beneath his ideal. Therefore, if he has done something weak or has made some mistake, he must not say so in public. And if he is engaged in some enterprise and knows he is sure to fail in it, he must not speak of it. Such self exposure is not only uncalled for, but also unnerves the man and makes him unfit for the performance of his legitimate duties in life. At the same time, he must struggle hard to acquire these things: firstly, knowledge, and secondly, wealth. It is his duty, and if he does not do his duty, he is nobody. A householder who does not struggle to get wealth is immoral. If he is lazy and content to lead an idle life, he is immoral because upon him depend hundreds. If he gets riches, hundreds of others will thereby supported. All right, I'll give you a hint. I'll give you a hint. It was one of the levers that we did, the big most important one is the Hebrew letter. There's your hint. And I'll yap for a second while I wait for anybody to get anybody who's going to throw the answer in there out of the few of us chilling here right now. So him saying this right here, so think of that too, and well, first think of this and realize this, that what he already said to start this chapter out about there's different morals, there's different cultural things all throughout the world, all of that. Keep that in mind because this is definitely through that Hindu tantric right now. These are verses from that tantra. He said, I can't remember the name of it. Hold on, let's look real quick. The Maha Nirvana Tantra. The Maha Nirvana. Nirvana, sick. The Maha Nirvana Tantra. So these verses here are going to be through that lens and through what the difference of the householder, and I think he's still going to talk about the monk too, is what he had said. So you do have to keep that in mind. Here in the Western world, here in the capitalist world, we do operate slightly differently. But even still, so that's why on the one hand, um, I'm not going to be quick to demonize like the billionaire class or even the millionaire class, because even if a lot of them are pieces of trash, still, I mean, we don't know. We really don't know for sure. We don't know what all they're doing or what all they got going on. We know exactly what we think we know, and that's about it. We don't actually know. But I do know that for sure there are plenty of people out there with wealth who actually do well for their communities. So that's what I've been emphasizing about pay attention, is because are these people out here who are making all kinds of money, offering up types of teachings, well, what are they doing with that? You know what I mean? Are they actually engaging with their communities? Are they actually giving back to their communities? And if they are, to what level? You know what I mean? Is it a very minimal effort, or is it a very just overly abundant effort? So just watch for these things. Don't we don't need to be totally demonizing people, that's for sure, because there are definitely tons of people out there. We don't even need to do the spiritual lens. There's just tons of people out there with a lot of wealth who give back to all kinds of charities. They give back to their community in all types of ways, whether it's their family and friends first and foremost, or even people who, that's why certain people's names are on parks. It doesn't have anything to do with colonization. You know what I mean? It has to do with money most of the time. And people who have money and donate money and say, hey, I'm gonna give $1 million to whatever, to the city of New Brunswick for this brand new park you guys want to put in, and also this new housing development. I'm going to put $1 million towards that. But then I want my name on the park. I want my name, John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmidt Park is what I want it called, because I gave you guys $1 million for it. But also I'm an engineer too. So I'm going to help come up with some of the plans and all of that. So it's not, this idea of eat the rich, this idea of everybody with money is money bad, is silly. It is foolish. It's part of just what makes this Malkuth thing happen. You know what I mean? To use a Kabbalistic phrasing. And since nobody put the answer in the chat, it's Samek. Samek is the prop. If there were not in this city hundreds who had striven to become rich, and who had acquired wealth, where would all this civilization and all these almshouses and great houses be? Going after wealth in such a case is not bad, because that wealth is for distribution. The householder is the center of life and society. It is a worship for him to acquire and spend wealth nobly. For the householder who struggles to become rich by good means and for good purposes is doing practically the same thing for the attainment of salvation as the anchorite does in his cell when he is praying. For in them we see only the different aspects of the same virtue of self surrender and self sacrifice, prompted by the feeling of devotion to God and to all that is His. He must struggle to acquire a good name by all means. He must not gamble. He must not move in the company of the wicked. He must not tell lies and must not be the cause of trouble to others. Often, people enter into things they have not the means to accomplish, with the result that they cheat others to attain their own ends. Then There is in all things the time factor to be taken into consideration. What at one time might be a failure would perhaps at another time be a very great success. The householder must speak truth and speak gently, using words which people like, which will do good to others, nor should he talk of the business of other men. The householder, by digging tanks, by planting trees on the roadsides, by establishing rest houses for men and animals, by making roads and building bridges, goes toward the same goal as the greatest yogi. This is one part of the doctrine of karma yoga. So see, maybe Dion's whole thing about it's the Western Dharma to however she how did she word it? She said it's the Western Dharma to try to conquer the physical. I think that's how she worded it. Well, this is Eastern teaching, so maybe it's just part of the human thing. Maybe there's a reason we're here, huh? But I know, nothing's true. Oh my goodness gracious. All right. This is one part of the doctrine of karma yoga, activity, the duty of the householder. There is a passage later on where it says that if the householder dies in battle, fighting for his country or his religion, he comes to the same goal as the yogi by meditation, showing thereby that what is duty for one is not duty for another. At the same time, it does not say that this duty is lowering and the other elevating. Each duty has its own place, and according to the circumstances in which we are placed, we must perform our duties. Yikes, I think I'm just going to highlight that whole thing, the whole last paragraph. One idea comes out of all of this: the condemnation of all weakness. This is a particular idea in all our teachings, which I like, either in philosophy or in religion or in work. If you read the Vedas, you will find this word always repeated: fearlessness. Fear nothing. Fear is a sign of weakness. A man must go about his duties without taking notice of the sneers and the ridicule of the world. If a man retires from the world to worship God, he must not think that those who live in the world and work for the good of the world are not worshiping God. Neither must those who live in the world for wife and children think that those who give up the world are low vagabonds. Each is great in his own place. Hey, that's the name of the chapter. This thought I will illustrate by a story. And Dub VT says, yeah, I did not know that letter. You talking about Samek? No big deal. No big deal at all. That's why we do the little pop quizzes is so we all learn. Maybe some of us don't have some of those certain things locked in yet, and that's fine because that's going to help you get it locked in. I remember when we were doing the Gareth Knight, the paths with Trav, there was a couple times where I was trying to get certain things locked in, but I hadn't yet. And he would even be hitting us with the little pop quizzes, and I would be saying, "Oh, that's this one." But then I'll tell you what really helps you remember to lock it in is when you get it wrong, and now you're like, "Oh crap," you know what I mean? Then you really that I mean for me at least that really helps me to remember on the next go around, you know. So Samek, yeah, and so that's why with that QBL study too, I said that hey, this the way that this author Frater Akkad is going to kind of flip this tree around, and even that post I made with the tarot cards spread out like the tree of life, and I did it the way he flipped it, and then I also did it the regular way. He said it, I said it, that for sure lock in and memorize the regular way, um, the past, the tarot, the Hebrew letters, the meanings of the Hebrew letters, all of that, before you go worry about scrambling it all up and around, and because you're just going to confuse yourself more in the process. You know what I mean? But now you know. Samek, the tent prop, that which is a support or a support prop, tied in with the art card, the temperance card, the card of alchemy, of actual alchemizing. You know, because like the fool card was holding the water and the fire in his hand from the time I pulled the fool and was showing it to you guys, versus in the art card now you're actually alchemizing. Now you're actually unifying those opposites. So that's, I'll say it again. That's why there's really always two sides to the coin. So some of the people that I might be talking smack towards, which there's a lot of them out here really that at least check those boxes to some degree. Shoot, myself included. You know what I mean? And so it's like there's always going to be the people who think that this is the greatest person ever, that this course they bought was the best thing they ever spent their money on. Just the same as there's going to be somebody who says, wow, this was a huge waste of money. This person's kind of a fraud. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. The same with anything in life. We can use art. Well, as I used the example of art yesterday, and I just was talking about the art card, you might buy a painting that you think is literally the best painting you've ever seen in your life, and then one night you're throwing a party and someone comes over and is just like laughing and clowning and saying, well, this painting sucks, and now you're having doubts. Now you're wondering, was this painting actually that good? I don't know. I thought it was really great. I love this painting, but this person came over, and it's this person I like from work. I consider them a friend. I value their opinion, and they just kind of took a dump all over it. So a lot of what's really being said here is you got to get to the place past all of that. You know what I'm saying? You got to get to that true state of the non-dual, that place really across the abyss. Okay, well, let's see. We were right here. He was about to tell us this story. And we got still about 10 pages of this chapter. So yeah, this one we might be pushing 2 hours on this stream by the time it's all said and done, but no big deal. A certain king used to inquire of all the sannyasins that came to his country, which is the greater man, he who gives up the world and becomes a sannyasin, or he who lives in the world and performs his duties as a householder? Right now, non-dual answer: both and neither. Many wise men sought to solve the problem. Some asserted that the sannyasin was the greater, upon which the king demanded that they should prove their assertion. When they could not, he ordered them to marry and become householders. Then others came and said, the householder who performs his duties is the greater man. Of them, too, the king demanded proofs. When they could not give them, he made them also settle down as householders. Now, that reminds me of a book I actually want to read on here that's a fiction book, Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. It's kind of like inspired by the story of the Buddha, and that story goes kind of back and forth in that way throughout the journey of this young man Siddhartha's life. So maybe we'll mix that in the very near future, because literally I love that book so much. It's so good. At last there came a young sannyasi, and the king similarly inquired of him also. He answered, "Oh, each, O king, is equally great in his place." "Prove this to me," asked the king. "I will prove it to you," said the sannyasin, "but you must first come and live as I do for a few days, that I may be able to prove to you what I say." The king consented and followed the sannyasin out of his own territory and passed through many other countries until they came to a great kingdom. In the capital of that kingdom a great ceremony was going on. The king and the sannyasin heard the noise of drums and music, and heard also the criers. The people were assembled in the streets in gala dress, and a great proclamation was being made. The king and the sannyasin stood there to see what was going on. The crier was proclaiming loudly that the princess, daughter of the king of that country, was about to choose a husband from among those assembled before her. It was an old custom in India for princesses to choose husbands in this way. Each princess had certain ideas about the sort of man she wanted for a husband. Some would have the handsomest man, others would have only the most learned, others again the richest, and so on. All the princes of the neighborhood put on their bravest attire and presented themselves before her. Sometimes they too had their own criers to enumerate their advantages and the reasons why they hoped the princess would choose them. The princess was taken, oh come on. The princess was taken round on a throne in the most splendid array and looked at and heard about them. If she was not pleased with what she saw and heard, she said to her bearers, "Move on," and no more notice was taken of the rejected suitors. If, however, the princess was pleased with any one of them, she threw a garland of flowers over him, and he became her husband. The princess of the country to which our king and the sannyasin had come was having one of these interesting ceremonies. She was the most beautiful princess in the world, and the husband of the princess would be the ruler of the kingdom after her father's death. The idea of this princess was to marry the handsomest man, but she could not find the right one to please her. Several times these meetings had taken place, but the princess could not select a husband. This meeting was the most splendid of all. More people than ever had come to it. The princess came in on a throne, and the bearers carried her from place to place. She did not seem to care for anyone, and everyone became disappointed that this meeting also was going to be a failure. Just then came a young man, a sannyasin, handsome as if the sun had come down to earth, and stood in one corner of the assembly, watching what was going on. The throne with the princess came near him, and as soon as she saw the beautiful sannyasin, she stopped and threw the garland over him. The young sannyasin seized the garland and threw it off, exclaiming, "What nonsense is this? I am a sannyasin. What is marriage to me?" The king of that country thought that perhaps this man was poor, and so dared not marry the princess, and said to him, "With my daughter goes half my kingdom now, and the whole kingdom after my death," and put the garland again on the sannyasin. The young man threw it off once more, saying, "Nonsense, I do not want to marry," and walked quickly away from the assembly. Now, the princess had fallen so much in love with this young man that she said, "I must marry this man or I shall die." And she went after him to bring him back. Then our other sannyasin, who had brought the king there, said to him, "King, let us follow this pair." So they walked after them, but at a good distance behind. The young sannyasin, who had refused to marry the princess, walked out into the country for several miles. When he came to a forest and entered into it, the princess followed him, and the other two followed them. Now, this young sannyasin was well acquainted with that forest and knew all the intricate paths in it. He suddenly passed into one of these and disappeared, and the princess could not discover him. After trying for a long time to find him, she sat down under a tree and began to weep, for she did not know the way out. Then our king and the other sannyasin came up to her and said, "Do not weep. We will show you the way out of this forest, but it is too dark for us to find it now. Here is a big tree. Let us rest under it, and in the morning we will go early and show you the road." Now a little bird and his wife and their three little ones lived on that tree in a nest. This little bird looked down and saw the three people under the tree and said to his wife, "My dear, what shall we do? Here are some guests in the house, and it is winter, and we have no fire. So he flew away to get a bit of burning firewood in his beak and dropped it before the guests, to which they added fuel and made a blazing fire. But the little bird was not satisfied. He said again to his wife, "My dear, what shall we do? There is nothing to give these people to eat, and they are hungry. We are householders. It is our duty to feed anyone who comes to the house. I must do what I can. I will give them my body." So he plunged into the midst of the fire and perished. The guests saw him falling and tried to save him, but he was too quick for them. The little bird's wife saw what her husband did, and she said, "Here are three persons and only one little bird for them to eat. It is not enough. It is my duty as a wife not to let my husband's effort go in vain. Let them have my body also." Then she fell into the fire and was burned to death. Then the three baby birds, when they saw what was done and that there was still not enough food for the three guests, said, "Our parents have done what they could, and still it is not enough. It is our duty to carry on the work of our parents. Let our bodies go too." And they all dashed down into the fire also. Amazed at what they saw, the three people could not, of course, eat these birds. They passed the night without food, and in the morning, the king and the sannyasin showed the princess the way, and she went back to her father. Then the sannyasin said to the king, "King, you have seen that each is great in his own place. If you want to live in the world, live like those birds, ready at any moment to sacrifice yourself for others. If you want to renounce the world, be like that young man to whom the most beautiful woman and a kingdom were as nothing. If you want to be a householder, hold your life a sacrifice for the welfare of others. And if you choose the life of renunciation, do not even look at beauty and money and power. Each is great in his own place, but the duty of the one is not the duty of the other." Oh, okay. I thought that we had about 10 more, but that no, we didn't. So that's not bad at all, because that does it for chapter 2. Chapter 3 will be the secret of work. And Ronaldo FJ, welcome, Ronaldo. Glad to have you here. Says, "Much love, my brother. I love what you're doing." Thank you so much. Well, hey, I appreciate that. All right, secret of work. Yeah, that's about a 15 pager. So we can come back to that tomorrow. We're already over an hour, 72 minutes. Typical. If you want to live in the world, live like those birds, ready at any moment to sacrifice yourself for others. If you want to renounce the world, be like that young man to whom the most beautiful woman in a kingdom were as nothing. If you want to be a householder, hold your life a sacrifice for the welfare of others. And if you choose to live the life of renunciation, do not even look at beauty and money and power. Each is great in his own place, but the duty of one is not the duty of the other. Well, that sure was a lot to think on. Swami V will do that to you. Strive. That's why we pulled that card. Two wheels, like I said, two wheels conflicting. Well, I guess it's four, but you could say the masculine and feminine side of one, the masculine and feminine side of the other, since we all have those dual polarities within us, conflicting with that centermost true will. So even though we do got a little bit of a different deck of cards to play with here in the Western world, still, I guess take a look at your circumstances, take a look at what you're doing, really call up that HGA, really figure out that true will. Then you don't have to guess anymore. WT says the secret of work. I can't wait to hear that chapter. Oh yeah, for sure. Me too. I'm excited for it. And the forecast was saying I might have some snowy days coming up, so I might not be working on those days. So maybe on some of those days we'll go ahead and knock out some bigger chunks. And then also this week was the week I was going to try something a little bit different. So, at the risk of putting way too much on everyone's plate, but also because I want to treat this like an actual classroom to a certain extent. Well, in school, if you were to just take math all day long, you would be so drained. So they give you these different kind of classes so that you can change things up. So I think this week what I'm going to do is tomorrow. So I'm going to still try to do the 6 days a week. And so tomorrow we'll continue with this. But then I think Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I'm actually going to go ahead and switch it up a little bit and maybe bring us something else to put our studies and focus into. And we'll give that a try for a bit. If everybody likes it, if everybody says, no, yeah, this is real good, then heck yeah, and we'll stay with it. If people end up saying, hey, nah, let's just focus, let's just do one at a time, then we'll do that. But we're going to try it out. So tomorrow we'll resume with karma yoga. And then Thursday, I'm going to hit you all with some Manly P. Hall. We're going to read his How to Understand Your Bible. I think that because I also do want to kind of get into that while the imitation of Christ is still a little fresh in our minds and before we actually read anything out of the Bible, because he's really going to pick apart a lot of the symbolism, a lot of what's the initiated aspects to understand for that book, because I think a lot of people, it's actually kind of entertaining, it's a little bit amusing to see how people will understand that, at least on some level they'll understand that this is allegory, this is an initiated text, this is meant to be read through a certain lens, but then people will then that'll go right out the window when they, I don't know, want to try to make certain comments about it, or I think you guys know what I'm saying. You see that all over the place, whether it's like, I don't know, some of these real wild Christians who will just misinterpret things in there in horrendous ways, or even in the occult, we'll see people who understand this is an allegorical text to some degree, an initiated text, but then at other times they'll speak about it like, I don't know, like it's like that it needs to be taken at face value or whatever. So we're gonna do that. That's how we're gonna switch it up. That's how we're gonna go about things, and we'll see how that goes. If it goes smooth, or if it goes a little rocky. I think it'll go smooth, but we'll just see. Might as well, right? Might as well keep the class moving while we have the opportunity to do so. So that's it. That's about all I've got to say for the day. Swami V said it. And I just read it. Swami V said it, but I read it. How you like that one? All right. Well, much love to you all. It was good to see some faces I haven't seen in a little bit. Sir Impeccable and Sunshine Chick, so much love to you. Mothra, thanks for popping in. Dub VT, thank you for popping in. One True Goddess, always great to see you here. And Ronaldo FJ, welcome, man. It's great to see you, and it's great to have you here too. I appreciate your support. And to the Russian name, I hope it is not too cold in Russia. At least I'm pretty sure that's Russian. It looks real Russian to me, but maybe it's a different language that just looks Russian to somebody who really doesn't know and can't say one way or the other. Either way, thank you for popping in, and much love to you all. I wish you a pleasant rest of your Tuesday, and I think I got some things to go think about. Swami V does that to you. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to see you all tomorrow. So much love. This has been Jay Baldell. This has been Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga. And until the next time, bye bye.